a seat up for Christmas. Hi, everybody. This is going to be a special Christmas Day release talking about how celebrations of Christmas happen in different countries. If you think that Christmas is universally celebrated the same way all over, you'd be incorrect. And because we're planning on getting visas and moving to France, I'd like to spend today kind of comparing and contrasting how Christmas is celebrated here in the US and how it's celebrated in France. Now, we're talking generally, so if you celebrate it slightly differently, don't get your back up. Just remember, these are average celebrations. In the US, Christmas is loud and lots of sing-song, especially in grocery and department stores. Things move fast, and it's pretty gift heavy. In France, it's a little slower, it's centered more on food and fellowship, and dare I say, more restrained. So today, let's compare Christmas in the US versus Christmas in France, and what each culture values the most during holidays. Now, when I was growing up, I grew up in a Protestant Christian family, and we usually, the Sunday prior to Christmas, unless Christmas was on a Sunday, in which case we'd be in church. But the Sunday prior to Christmas was the holiday that we celebrated by having a little nativity play at the church where all the children went and dressed as shepherds and Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus and all of those things. So we did that growing up too. But on the actual celebration, I think we're going to stick more with just the secular parts of the celebration when we're comparing. There are very devoted and devout religious people, Christian people in France as well, that might go to a midnight mass or a church service of some kind. However, we're going to, for this, we're going to stick more with the kind of celebratory aspects that are a little more secular for purposes of commercial stuff. Let's talk about before the holiday, the buildup. Usually, even before Halloween this year, our local Walmart and several other department stores started to take down Halloween stuff and put up Christmas stuff before Halloween even occurred. So, and the day after Halloween, that's when the Christmas music starts. I have always been a traditionalist and refuse to listen to Christmas music outside of having to go into a store until between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Here in the US, decorations start to go up pretty much immediately right before or right after Thanksgiving, depending on the family. Some entire neighborhoods of people's houses light the whole neighborhood up, and some are a little more sedate. Big box stores dominate the shopping season. Christmas is kind of a spectacle. There are lights in public places. Our little small town has, on the historic courthouse, which is right in the middle of town, has a really pretty kind of Christmas tree display, and every light pole has a star on it or a bell. I can't even remember. I haven't been through the center of town at night lately. But we have those kinds of things in our smaller towns, and some larger places like New York City and Chicago and other places might have big store display windows and lots more lights than we do. As a whole, most of Christmas lights settle around people's homes rather than in the town or neighborhood. Now, let's take a look at France. They don't have a Thanksgiving celebration in November, so usually right after Halloween is when French cities begin to start putting together their Christmas displays, light displays, Christmas markets, all of those kinds of things. Very few private homes center lighting around their homes, or many don't even have big Christmas trees and things like that inside, though it's become more and more prevalent in France for people to have a Christmas tree as well. I watch one lady on YouTube and I love her. They got a Christmas tree that was potted. So it's a small tree. They live in a relatively small house in a village, and they kept it potted so that they can take it out outside the village and plant it when the Christmas season's over. I thought that was really cool. The big department stores like the Carrefours and all of these other places do sell Christmas trees. But usually it's the town center that transforms. And I'm talking all the way down to small villages, larger towns, all the way up to the big cities. It seems to me like everywhere I look on French TV and in French newspapers, almost every village or town has a Christmas market. Some larger cities have window displays and department store windows that are kind of animatronic and move and change year after year after year that the kids, of course, are transfixed by. Most of them are very artistic and they're curated and they can be really whimsical and fun. The Christmas markets put a lot of emphasis on food, crafts, mulled wine or vin chaud. I do love me some mulled wine. And it's a big social gathering. It's where people see other people and socialize and talk and watch their kids on the little makeshift skating rink if they have one, or on the little rides. It has a real carnival feel. And they usually are ready to set up before the end of November and last through usually January 1st, usually through the new year. At these Christmas markets, it's less about buying all the things and more about just being somewhere and soaking in the environment and just enjoying where you are. The tone is usually very atmospheric and just has a really kind of neighborhood, I belong to this town vibe. So the key contrast pre-Christmas is in the US, Christmas happens at home and in the stores. My husband and I refuse to go into the larger department stores between Thanksgiving and Christmas because it's a lot. It's too much. It's too much. We are a consumerist society, and we have been taught by corporations and big box stores and department stores that we need to consume. Okay, we'll get to that later. Let's talk about the food. So in the United States, the main meal is Christmas Day. It can be any time during the day. A lot of families will do like a Christmas brunch with breakfast casseroles and stuff, and then wait till 4 or 5 in the afternoon to start the Christmas meal going. When I was growing up, my parents were divorced, so sometimes I ended up with two Christmas celebrations, and sometimes we had to end up being at one or the other. I do remember one year we spent Christmas with my Amish relatives. My stepdad had been Amish growing up, and that was such a fun time. But we won't go there because that's not the normal, traditional, non-Amish way of celebrating. But our whole family was huge. My dad was one of 10 kids. My mom was one of 7 girls. All of the people were there. And when we had a Christmas celebration, everybody came, usually gathered at my grandparents'. And usually the men would go off into the living room and talk while the women hung out in the kitchen and got things ready. My grandmother being the main woman of the bunch. Now, we all would bring dishes as well. So it was just this big potluck kind of vibe with tables that were just groaning with food. I mean, one more dish and the whole thing might have collapsed. And that's how we did things. Now, later, as I grew older and my grandparents had passed away, my dad was a restaurateur. So he loved to cook. So he would often make a big, we didn't do turkey at Christmas time. That was Thanksgiving. He would always make a big giant prime rib roast, the perfect medium rareness inside with crackly fat on the outside. Oh God, it was so good. And sometimes he would make also slabs of pork ribs that were sometimes barbecue and sometimes not. He was a barbecue restaurant guy for quite some time too. And it just was a big, again, potluck sort of celebration. The food was laid out across all the buffets and the countertops, and everybody went through and got what they wanted, and then sat in various places all over their big giant house. And we enjoyed the meal. We enjoyed talking to each other, but a lot of it was more about the prep and then the cooking and then the cleanup. Once you became 12 or 13 years old, you weren't running outside and playing anymore after dinner. You were helping clean up. And again, seemed to be a little division of the sexes most of the time. The women were cleaning up while the men either sat in the area talking or went into a different room or area and were talking. Some were watching football. In my family, football wasn't a huge thing, so it was more just chit-chatting. But I did have a couple uncles that would want to turn on football or would bring their little radios with them so they could listen. But it was definitely a very division of the sexes kind of celebration. Oh, and before the Christmas meal, in the morning was when we hurriedly unwrapped everything so we could get to the Christmas meal prep. But we'll talk about that again too. Usually at most dining tables in the US, it's a ham or a turkey that's roasted. There's almost always a couple types of potatoes, mashed potatoes, potatoes au gratin, all kinds of stuff like that. Sometimes there's stuffing even if there's not a turkey. Lots and lots of casseroles. I grew up in the Midwestern part of this country. Casseroles were our thing, especially in the wintertime. Lots of potatoes and mac and cheese and all kinds of just big, heavy casseroles. And then of course, there was the green bean casseroles, a little bit lighter. And also vegetables, that were lighter. My stepmom always made a big, almost a vat of creamed corn, and it was homemade. It wasn't that canned stuff. It was good stuff. And it was just all of those kinds of comforting winter things. There wasn't a lot of fresh about it. As I said, the timing varies widely. It could be afternoon, it could be evening, but usually we were breaking down and going home by 7 p.m. And food is important in the US too. The food traditions are important, but sometimes the timing is so fast because the food is sandwiched between the open the presents, open the presents, open the presents, and maybe the football game after the meal. And in our house, it was we had family coming from a couple hours away. So it was logistics too. People would have to rush to eat so that they could get home. So let's look at France. I did consult a lot of French people and a lot of videos talking about French traditions, and I follow a few people who talk about their French traditions. There's even a video on Easy French every single year where they talk to people in French about their Christmas traditions. So French people aren't centered on Christmas Day. The French Christmas holiday begins on Christmas Eve. I think it's Le Réveillon. Did I say it right? Usually it centers on a long, formal, multi-course dinner that could last from when it starts at 7 or 8 o'clock all the way into the wee hours of the night. Midnight, especially, certainly midnight, sometimes even later. There are multiple courses. Usually in the beginning, they'll start with little amuse-bouches, which are bites that make you happy and amuse the mouth, like oysters on the half shell. Foie gras is big in France. It's controversial. There's smoked salmon with creamy underneath on little blinis, the little pancakes, or a toasted or a cracker of some kind. Sometimes there are seafood platters. And this is just the beginning, mind you. You'll move from the little amuse-bouches into the second course, which sometimes can be seafood. It can be just all kinds of little tidbits and aperitif and appetizers. So you've already gone through quite a bit before you get to the main. And then main is usually the third course, and it usually consists of some kind of roast meat. Some families do use turkey. Turkey is not my favorite. I don't even like the smell of turkey very much. So I would probably be choosing something different. In France, it's roast meat of some kind. Oftentimes it's poultry. If it's not turkey, it might be a capon, which is a castrated rooster that grows very big and large, and they like them. And I noticed though that when the Frenchies went through the grocery store and saw those, it was like, woo, they were pricey. Or they might have roast beef or even a rib roast like my dad used to make. I've seen too on tables in France. And that made me go, oh, yay. Or even game meats like venison might be the main. And usually there's some kind of potato, of course. Everybody loves potatoes. Potatoes are life. So there's potatoes, there's bread, there's all kinds of things that you can eat during the main course. And that, again, it centers around the protein, the big protein. After the main course, there's a cheese course. We don't just go straight to dessert. No, we do not. Now, there may be on the table in all of these things, there might be a bowl of roast chestnuts. That's a big thing. Or there might be candied chestnuts at the end of the meal around the dessert time. But between the main dish and the end dish is the cheese course. So there will be a board, of course, with multiple types of cheese and multiple things to eat the cheese with. Or sometimes a lot of people will just eat the cheese without putting it on something. You know, here in the US, we get little Ritz crackers and put a square cheese on top of that, and maybe a little something to spice it up or dress it up or something like that. But in France, a lot of times you're eating cheese. You eat cheese. It's delicious all on its own. And again, by this time, you're very full. You're taking your time. You're not gobbling down the food and trying to get some before it's all gone because your cousin Ed decided he was going to eat 6 bowls and take a big carry-out with him when he left. So it's much more slow and relaxed. So the main dish, the main part might last, that protein might be a good hour while you're digesting and while you're eating. And of course, the whole time wine is flowing and other drinks, of course. If you're not a wine drinker, there are other things to do too. They even have non-alcoholic wines and champagnes often for people who don't want to drink and for the kids. You're really focused, the meal, yes, the food, you're focused on the delicious, wonderful food, but you're also focused on fellowship and talking to one another and visiting. So the cheese course will come, and then you'll have more conversation along with the cheese course. And then usually there's the big traditional, oh, did I not? I forgot about the US dessert. In the US, Christmas time desserts usually center around pie. There are several traditional pies. I mean, pie everywhere, all the time, any kind. I remember seeing cherry pies, apple pie, which I'm not a fan of. I like cherry better. And I remember seeing pecan pie, certainly, pumpkin pie. Later in life, I tasted sweet potato pie and thought, oh, phooey on pumpkin pie. I'll take the sweet potato pie, please. And those kinds of, again, heavier, wintry sort of dishes. But there were also people who would bring like a lemon meringue pie and stuff like that, and just bright and cheery, lots and lots of chocolates, lots and lots of cookies, many cookies. People really like to make cookies. Those little um, they called them wedding cake cookies. I guess Mexican wedding cake is what they called them in our house, or I don't even remember what they called them, but little powdered sugar, nutty cookies and gingerbread cookies and all kinds of cookies and brownies and stuff like that would turn up as well. In France, the traditional dessert is the Yule log. What's that called? The bûche de Noël. And it is meant to, and historically, it was an actual log that they would bring on the winter solstice, the log that would burn and burn and burn until a big log that would burn until the season was over and the end of the year was finished. It made the dark days bright. So it turned into a dessert tradition, which we'd call it a Swiss roll cake. It's just a thin cake that you put stuff in between on top, and then you roll it into a rolling shape, and then it's decorated to look like a log. And honestly, according to a lot of French people I've spoken to, the kitschier the decorations on it, the better. Little tiny snowmen or Santa Clauses or little tiny plastic trees and stuff like that. Just anything to make it look festive. There are several different kinds of Yule log. I won't really get into that. A lot of times they're ice creamy, like they come out of the freezer, because that makes the end of the meal after a big long meal a little bit lighter. Some people use frosting, like a buttercream kind of frosting, which makes it heavier. And some people use mousse, which I would probably be inclined to like the best, but I'd probably like them all, let's face it. I'm a pie more than cake person though, but I would still enjoy a small slice of that. And also potentially some candies too, are other traditions, and chocolate things. And but mostly it's that wrapped around that Yule log, and maybe candied chestnuts will appear at some point too. So that's kind of what the French meals entail. Now, just like in the US, regionally, things might be a little bit different. In France, food is the event. That is Christmas. That's the celebration. On Christmas Day, they'll have a lunch. But Christmas Day, the morning is used to recover from the night. Someone might have over imbibed a little bit, or just they're tired because they might have been up till 2 o'clock in the morning celebrating this big long meal. And the next day might be a Christmas lunch with a little champagne or something of that nature. So the contrast with the food to me is that in the US, food kind of supports the day, the things around it. Even though it might be delicious, we would leave the food out on the tables and people would just keep coming back and picking and picking and picking and picking. But in France, the day supports the food. The food is the centerpiece, is the big celebration. Okay, let's talk about gifts, presents, and commercialism. In the United States, it has gotten more and more and more. I remember you probably seen A Christmas Story with Ralph and his little brother Randy. And on Christmas morning, the tree is just, the whole underside of this big tree is just full of presents, full of Christmas presents and presents and presents and more presents. And it has become that kind of commercial holiday. A lot of businesses actually make the most of their money in the third quarter of the year because people are buying Christmas presents for other people. So there's a heavy emphasis on how many gifts you get. Lots of times it's a surprise reveal. There are just piles of stuff underneath the tree. The average family Christmas, there's a big emphasis on presents and present giving. And it's even made a ceremony out of it. Like they have one person play Santa and pass the gifts out, and everybody watches as one person opens their gift before somebody else opens theirs so we can all see it. Christmas is tied very tightly to retail sales, Black Friday, which can last from Thanksgiving to Christmas, and Cyber Monday. Black Friday comes the day after Thanksgiving, which is always on a Thursday. Cyber Monday comes the following Monday, which is all computery stuff and digital products. Christmas is very children focused. It's all about the kids. And the pressure that you're under, the financial pressure that parents are under to provide this big, happy Christmas for their kids can be crushing. A lot of people go into credit card debt at Christmas time. This year, even more so, because guess why? I won't even go further than that. Compare and contrast with France. In France, there are fewer gifts. Often there might be one thoughtful, meaningful gift per person, or a few small, meaningful items. It's not a rat race to get the new Labubu. Adults will exchange gifts with each other without a big brouhaha or spectacle. There's less expectation of abundance, and they also will exchange gifts In on Christmas Eve again, usually the general exchange is at midnight. That's mostly for adults. If there are small children, they might do the gifts more like 10 o'clock at night. But they expect children, instead of putting them away at the kids' table, children are expected to join in that big meal and just enjoy conversation and talk. They're not put away and told to be seen and not heard or sent to play somewhere else while the adults have a good time. Kids are expected to learn how to enjoy themselves right there with everybody else. So in France, there's more emphasis on shared meals, spending time together, traditions that a family or group of family and friends might have adopted. So to me, speaking from the US end of things, the key contrast here is in the US, Christmas is about more. In France, it's about enough, just enough. Speaking of that, let's look at shopping practices. United States, there's the big box stores, online shopping. We're looking at speed and convenience. I want to get it fast. I want to get it now. I want to get in that store, grab something, and get out. There's a sales-driven urgency. People that work in the stores are driven to sell, sell, sell. People going to purchase from the stores are driven to buy, buy, buy. When I was a kid, Black Friday in the 80s was just a madhouse. People would be outside waiting for the big stores to open, and they would literally stampede inside. They didn't care who they trampled. There would be fist fights over the last television set or the last Nintendo game console. It was just crazy town. I remember one of the things was like Cabbage Patch dolls. That was a big thing. If during the year that Cabbage Patch dolls were so popular, people were fighting over them, paying hundreds of dollars for them. It was crazy. But that's kind of the way our society has been driven to get to. A consumer society. We got to get that for my kid or I'll never be forgiven and they'll hate me. But gift buying is often separated from the daily life of the holiday season. In France, the focus is more on looking for that one meaningful thing, going into small shops and browsing, going to the Christmas markets and looking in the booths and seeing if something stands out. There are a lot more food-focused purchases like cheese and wines and fancy, like maybe even caviar or things like that. Shopping becomes a part of the holiday. You're not rushing into Costco to get that last thing or into Walmart or wherever. You're walking and strolling through the Christmas markets and smiling at people and enjoying the day and having a mulled wine or having a raclette or something like that. And it's about ritual, the ritual of enjoying the holiday and of looking for a more meaningful gift for someone. There's a lot less panic buying. To me, again, I'm speaking from someone from the US who grew up enjoying Christmas, mind you, though Halloween's my favorite still. American Christmas shopping is transactional. I'm paying you to get this thing or these multiple things. French Christmas shopping is more experiential. You're going for the experience. You're going to enjoy the lights that the town has put up and the little chalets that pop up all over the place where you can walk in and look and see what they have. And in smaller towns, it might be tents rather than chalets. But just the act of going and being in this communal holiday atmosphere, and people who have children can take their children, and the kids can enjoy foods and things and sweets and also little rides and stuff like that. And hopefully while I'm talking to you, I'm showing you a lot of the little video footages I found of different Christmas markets. One or two might be German. I try to get them all in France, but it's a similar concept. Let's look back at this. I want everybody to know I'm not condemning or saying one thing is better than the other. Neither way implies right or wrong. I think it's just a matter of what cultures value differently. The US excels at celebrations and generosity. France excels at being present in the moment and on ritual and on restraint. Not too many French people, for example, would be wearing a red Christmas sweater and a red necklace and red jewel earrings. But as an American, I like red and I like Christmas colors. I like bright colors in general. I will be recognized by French people as an American before I even open my mouth. I do wear more sedate, restrained colors as well, but I do like to dress up in a sparkly Christmas outfit. And as someone preparing to move from one culture to another, the contrast has really made me think what I want Christmas to feel like. I always loved the idea of, I feel like I remember Raina from Baguette Bound saying this at one point, that when I was in the US, well, when I was growing up and when I was a young adult, I always just wished for a meal where we could visit and talk and where we all prepared it together, and men and women both, and where we ate together and spent time talking and listening instead of gorging and talking fast across the table and all the just hyper stuff. And I remember, I mean, you had to talk over each other and have six conversations going on at once in my family, or you wouldn't get to talk at all because wasn't anybody going to shut up for you. So I always wished for that longer, more drawn out meal before getting yelled at it that it's time to come clean up. So I'm really looking forward to the slower, more deliberate, more restrained pace and the fellowship. If you celebrate Christmas another way, I would love to hear your comments. Please don't forget to hit that thumbs up. I hope you're having a merry holiday wherever you happen to be. I hope that you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel. And I hope that you have a wonderful holiday no matter where you happen to be. And we will see you soon.